Mr. Pat Price is considered one of the most gifted telepaths in history and was one of the top 3 psychics in the CIA's psychic program. You could say he started at his peak. Not long after joining the Stanford Research Institute SSRE to participate in ESP research, he pulled off a major feat: infiltrating the NSA. In 1973, physicist Dr. Russell Targ and engineer Dr. Harold Puthoff, the leaders of the ESP research project at SRI, designed an experiment called SCANOT. The experiment involved placing the test subject in a room while the researchers randomly selected coordinates, such as specific longitudes and latitudes, and then asked the subject to perform remote viewing and describe or draw what they saw at the location. Mr. Pat Price, along with Ingo Swann, whom we've previously introduced, were the main participants in this project. They completed many successful sessions, all documented in a 170-page CIA report. CIA Monitor Kit Green wanted to test the abilities of these 2 remote viewing experts himself. He passed a coordinate to Puthoff, who then relayed it to Price and Swann. During his first session, Ingo Swann said, "This is a strange place. It feels like the lawn outside a military base. I sense it's either an old bunker or a covered reservoir. There's a flagpole there." The next day, Ingo Swann tried again and described, "There's a cliff to the east, a fence to the north, and a round building to the south, possibly a tower." He drew a rough sketch and mentioned he sensed something underground. Then it was Mr. Pat Price's turn. His description was even more detailed, noting the altitude, the type of rock on the slope, the vegetation, nearby roads, and their style. What kind of city was nearby, and even the current weather. He also described finding an unusual site. There's a large underground storage facility extending from the west slope at the back of the mountain. It's well hidden, seemingly intentionally so. It's concealed under trees and likely hard to spot even when flying overhead. The place appears to have once been a missile launch site, but it now has an archive area, microfilm, and file cabinets. Price drew a map as requested: a fence to the north, a flagpole in the center, and a round tower-like building to the south, closely matching Swann's version. When CIA Monitor Kit Green received their reports, he was stunned. What kind of place was this? There was a guardhouse for underground levels. You can enter via an aluminum roll-up door leading to a basement level. There's a records room 100 feet long, 40 feet wide, and 20 feet high, with concrete support columns shaped like flared trumpets. Green called his colleague David, who had originally given the coordinates, and asked what was really at that location. David replied, "That's absolute nonsense. I gave you the coordinates to a small cabin I just built in West Virginia." This response left everyone disappointed and disheartened. But project leader Targ felt something was off. If this had been a failed experiment, why were Mr. Pat Price and Ingo Swann's mistakes so eerily similar? Throughout the entire process, the two hadn't communicated at all. So Targ decided to go check out the coordinates himself. He found the cabin. It seemed like they really had gotten it wrong. Targ was feeling pretty down, but about 100 meters from the cabin, he noticed a muddy road and decided to follow it. Not far along, he came across a guard post, roll-up door, giant circular radar receiver, and was promptly stopped by U.S. military guards. Targ was thrilled. This proved the experiment had worked. They had successfully remote viewed a location 3,000 miles away. Oh, and Pat Price had also read documents at the site, something unprecedented at the time. Maybe that could be verified too? So Kit Green and his team sent Pat Price's remote viewing report to the U.S. military, asking if there was indeed a military base in that area of West Virginia. They asked whether there was a file cabinet on the north wall of a certain room, labeled Operation Pool Q, and whether it contained folders marked Q ball, 14 ball, 4 ball, 8 ball, and rack up. Also, were Colonel so-and-so and General so-and-so working there? Within 24 to 48 hours, U.S. security personnel showed up at Kit Green's CIA office, visibly furious. Meanwhile, the military had already surrounded the Stanford Research Institute. It turned out that in Sugar Grove, West Virginia, there was a highly classified NSA military facility used to intercept signals from Soviet satellites. Sugar Grove is located within the National Radio Quiet Zone, NRQZ, an area of about 13,000 square miles, covering parts of Virginia, West Virginia, and Maryland. In this zone, all forms of radio transmission are prohibited. Activating any kind of radio equipment could result in visits from law enforcement, fines, or even imprisonment. In some parts of the zone, even microwaves and Wi-Fi are banned. And yet, this deeply secret location had been completely seen by Pat Price through remote viewing. And everything he saw was accurate, including the file cabinet and the billiards-themed folder labels. Furious U.S. security officers questioned Kit Green. "What the hell is the CIA doing? You're using psychics to spy on the NSA? Don't you realize that everything in that location is top secret? Even the operation code names like 4-ball and 8-ball are top secret. And you just handed that over in a report? Is this remote viewing or a security breach? Is there a Soviet spy among you?" Thanks to the CIA's efforts to protect the project, the SRI psychic research team narrowly avoided disaster. But Pat Price's abilities caught the attention of many, and Targ and others long suspected that this incident may have laid the groundwork for Pat Price's mysterious death later on. New objective: CMI Palatinska test site. After the NSA incident, for safety reasons, everyone decided not to conduct any more tests within the United States. After all, the CIA's purpose in funding this project was to obtain Soviet intelligence, so why not just get on with it? Testing time, 1974. Testing location? The Soviet city of Semipalatinsk. After 2007, the city was renamed Semi. At the time, the CIA had received intelligence that the Soviets were building a mysterious military base there, seemingly to construct some kind of doomsday weapon. Mr. Pat Price was the remote viewer for this mission. That day, he intentionally wore a pair of glasses. Kit Green was curious. Why wear glasses? Mr. Pat Price humorously replied, "Wearing glasses helps me remote view more clearly." Research by Targ and others found that, based on their statistical studies, there are generally two methods for remote viewing among psychics. One is projecting consciousness to a location, as if the mind leaves the body and transcends space and time. Like Ingo Swann's moon remote viewing, which seems to be this type. The other method involves the psychic acting as a receiver, with images flooding into the mind like slides from above, one after another. Mr. Pat Price belonged to this second type. Mr. Pat Price reported seeing extremely heavy iron rails and a giant gantry crane, the largest he had ever seen, with wheels approximately 10 feet in diameter. It wasn't until 1977 that U.S. intelligence confirmed the existence of these spheres. They were the protective shells of secret Soviet nuclear weapons meant to shoot down American spy satellites. Just as Price said, they never functioned properly. This demonstrates the remarkable accuracy of Price's remote viewing abilities. Not long after this, Mr. Pat Price officially joined the CIA as a full-time employee. However, he only worked there for 4 months before he suddenly passed away. Why did this happen? Mysterious base beneath the Four Mountains. While working for the CIA, Mr. Pat Price was repeatedly asked to remotely view the Soviet Union. But his attention was frequently drawn, almost involuntarily, to one place: Mount Hayes in Alaska. This location is remote and desolate, with the mountains situated in a vast frozen wilderness, inaccessible by road and miles from any human activity. When CIA personnel asked him what was there, Mr. Pat Price said he saw nothing. But he was lying. Mr. Pat Price later conducted a solo remote viewing of the area and saw a massive base inside Mount Hayes, filled with advanced technology and equipment. He saw computers, control panels, and machines he couldn't comprehend. Then, he saw the operators of these machines, What he described sent chills down his spine. They looked like humans, but were definitely not. They were tall and thin, with larger heads, and their hearts, lungs, blood, and eyes were different from humans. These humanoid beings were engaged in some kind of work, and standing next to them, working alongside them, were U.S. military personnel. During this remote viewing of the base inside Mount Hayes, Mr. Pet Price felt intense fear, something he had never experienced before. No one expected what happened 2 days later. While on a business trip in Las Vegas, Mr. Pet Price was found dead in his hotel room. His body was quickly removed, no autopsy was performed, and he was cremated swiftly. The official cause of death was heart failure. That year, Mr. Pet Price was 56 years old. He was buried in an unmarked grave in North Hollywood, labeled only with the number 700. Targ later said he deeply regretted agreeing to let Mr. Pet Price join the CIA. He suspected Mr. Pet had seen a secret he wasn't supposed to, and was silenced, though that was only his suspicion. Before the trip, Mr. Pet Price had taken out a large life insurance policy with his wife as the beneficiary. Targ felt Mr. Pet Price may have had a premonition of his fate. The Stargate Project. In 1980, the CIA launched its well-known remote viewing program, the Stargate Project. The operations and training officer for the project was Skip Atwater. One day, Targ brought him for documents, remote viewing records that Mr. Pet Price had previously entrusted to him. The contents were astounding. Price had discovered through remote viewing that alien bases existed beneath 4 major mountains around the world. Besides Mount Hayes in Alaska, there were Mount Perdido in Spain, Mount Nyangani in Zimbabwe, Mount Zile in Australia. Alaska is known for its unusual geology and magnetic anomalies. It has long been a hotspot for UFO sightings. People have reported strange objects hovering above mountains, then flying away at impossible speeds. Others claim to see objects disappear into the mountain, as if they pass through solid rock. Enter the CIA's third psychic expert. Atwater was stunned by the documents and decided to find someone to verify these locations. The third expert of the CIA psychic team finally appeared. New Project 8200. At the time, Atwater was in contact with another talented psychic, Joseph McMoneagle, a legendary figure in the remote viewing world. He had conducted thousands of sessions for the military and CIA, including finding secret Soviet submarines and tracking down hostages in Iran. Given his excellent track record, he was the perfect person to verify Mr. Pet Price's findings. On July 28, 1982, Project 8200 began. Its goal: remote viewing of the 4 suspected alien bases hidden in the mountains. In the remote viewing room, Atwater handed McMoneagle an envelope containing the coordinates of Mount Hayes. But McMoneagle didn't know what location it was. Soon, McMoneagle began to see images and drew them on paper. Large bodies of water and ice. A very desolate area, and a vast mountain range stretching thousands of miles. He marked an X on the spot he believed the target to be deep in the mountains. What he described was exactly Mount Hayes, and his map was impressively accurate. So what was inside the mountain? McMoneagle sensed pipes, large amounts of electronic equipment, and some kind of grid structure. He felt the presence of a powerful transmitter using a huge amount of energy and a very low frequency signal. He also saw a massive ground-based grid generating an electric field powered by a miniature nuclear power station. There were also buried pipes in coiled shapes. The technology was so unfamiliar that McMoneagle struggled to describe it. He likened his experience to a caveman sitting in a Tesla, completely unable to understand the technology or describe what he was seeing. He also noticed the base was covered by a giant dome. On top of the dome was a transmitter that sent huge amounts of energy into space. Next target, Mount Zile, Australia. After receiving the coordinates, McMoneagle described seeing a large underground cave with a massive black door. Inside was a smooth concrete dome that seemed like a storage room. He detected buried coils and electronic equipment. There was also a command center with advanced technology. When asked if he saw any personnel or guards, McMoneagle said no. But he felt the presence of guard-like creatures, like watchdogs or horses. The place gave him an extremely malevolent feeling. Next, Mount Perdido, Spain. Upon viewing this location, McMoneagle first saw cliffs, gray rocks, and mountain goats. Then, he detected a man-made cave, an artificial facility. He drew it. A spider web-like structure with a disc and a spike in the center. The central part seemed to be a high-frequency transmitter sending energy into space, with other parts acting as relay receivers. He sensed intense transmission and reception of energy and information. Who built it? Aliens? No, he saw helicopters transporting equipment, indicating human and military involvement. The facility seemed to be constructed about 2 to 2.5 years prior. Final target? Mount Nyangani, Zimbabwe. At this location, McMoneagle again sensed a command and communication center. He said all these command centers were interconnected, nodes on a vast web. The Mount Nyangani Center was active but in standby mode, receiving and passing on information like a relay station, doing nothing until activated. After the remote viewing ended, Atwater asked McMoneagle for his interpretation. McMoneagle said he sensed that there were many such facilities on Earth, marked with stars asterisk on his map, all connected to circular objects in space. These were not satellites, he called them space platforms. These platforms were fixed in place, immobile, not orbiting, like being tethered to Earth by an invisible rope, and located very far from Earth. When trying to understand the origin of these space platforms, McMoneagle felt a strange mix of very old and very new, two opposite sensations at once. He felt the platforms were ancient, but the bases on Earth might be recently built. He also added that such facilities were not only inside mountains, but also deep under the sea. This mission took place in the 1980s, decades before we started seeing videos of UFOs diving into and emerging from the ocean. Verification. After McMoneagle's involvement, Project 8200 gradually brought in other psychics to view the four coordinates. Their descriptions, to varying degrees, confirmed what Price and McMoneagle had seen. Some saw box-like electronic devices, underground cables, circular domes, and cold, emotionless beings operating control panels with piano-like keys. Just like Mr. Pet Price, several viewers drew images of UFOs they had seen. In 2009, Atwater attended the IRVA remote viewing conference and described Project 8200 in detail. He admitted they never dared mention UFOs in official reports, for doing so might have not only ended the project, but also destroyed the careers and reputations of everyone involved, including himself. So, does Atwater himself believe that there are alien bases beneath those four great mountains and under the deep sea? He said he struggled with this for a long time, and finally decided to call a friend of his, who was in charge of CIA operations in Northern Australia, to ask if there was anything unusual going on in Australia. The friend replied that it was very boring there, except for the UFOs flying around Mount Zile, huh? The Stargate Project, including Project 8200, which was used to explore psychic abilities, was terminated in the 1990s. The official explanation was that the project wasn't very useful. Not very useful? Well, maybe others don't know, but at least former US President Jimmy Carter wouldn't agree with that statement. In his autobiography, A Full Life, Reflections at 90, he devoted quite a bit of space to describing how, in 1978, the US military used psychic operatives to locate a crashed Soviet Tu-22 bomber in Africa, ahead of the Soviets, and obtained Soviet classified documents from the aircraft. Before this, the former president had mentioned this incident on various occasions, clearly showing how proud he was of it. Although in the scientific community, research into psychic abilities has always been considered non-mainstream. These phenomena undeniably exist. It's just that our current level of scientific understanding is still unable to fully explain the underlying principles. In 1995, at the request of the U.S. Congress, the American Institutes for Research reviewed research projects related to remote viewing. One of the two main reviewers, Jessica Utz, a statistician from the University of California, Davis, concluded, "Surprisingly, the audit results of these investigations far exceeded our expectations. The reasoning that these results might be due to flaws in experimental methodology is completely unfounded. Similar findings to those discovered in the government-funded studies have been replicated extensively in laboratories around the world. Such consistency cannot casually be attributed to defects or fraud." The other main reviewer, Ray Hyman, a skeptic of remote viewing, also said, "I tend to agree with Professor Utz that these experiments did produce real results, and not just coincidences under a null hypothesis." So then, why did the CIA shut down the Stargate Project? Some say the project was never actually stopped. It simply went deeper underground. So, what do you think?
Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Share it, because some stories are meant to be discovered together. And stay curious. I'll see you in the next chapter.